seat of my father.
It's a very unique situation. We have two brothers that have become priests. I'm going to introduce himself, and we're going to talk a bit about life as they're growing up.
I'm John Paul, and his name is David Abdul Sayed. I've been a priest for over 8 years. I serve at St. Mary's in Pomona, California. And I'm married. I'm the married one. And I have a beloved wife for 10 years and 3 children. And it's a blessing to serve God, to serve His people. And our callings, of course, are different because as a celibate priest, both the callings relate to the love of God and the love and passion for serving His people. And the calling, even within the married priesthood, is different. Both of us, actually, our calling started with consecration. We both wanted to consecrate our lives for the service, regardless of marriage and regardless of ordination. So we didn't plan. Neither of us planned to be priests. We just planned to serve our whole life. After going through, Abuna went through law school. I went through engineering, but we both ended up in consecration. And because Abuna didn't need to get married in the time of that kind of, so he was ordained first, and he started in the brotherhood, while I still was consecrated, and then I got married, and eventually after that we got ordained. So that's kind of like how it progressed. But like I said in the beginning, everyone's called, not just within the priesthood, but as Christians, we're all called by God to serve. And everyone has a different way that they go about serving God and serving His people, whether it's a doctor or an engineer or a stay-at-home mother. They're all called to God, by God, to serve in one way or another.
Desire. At what point in your life did you decide that you wanted to be a priest?
In terms of deciding to be a priest, I think we decide to live a life for God, or a life of consecration, a life, for me, of monasticism, and start very young. And usually the desire for most people comes junior high, high school, that age, and then it's tested over the years. And usually in this process too, there's a time where the person will choose, if for monasticism, choose whether or not to be a monk or serving in the world, and then to decide which area in Egypt, in America. So that's the process that we go through if we're seeking to live a life of celibacy. The married priests, it has a different process. I think Abuna can explain for that. But at least for me in the diocese, mainly through Sayyidna. So the bishop has the vision and the wisdom and the gift of the Holy Spirit to select and to appoint and to see who serves where and how they serve them. So it's really under his wisdom, and when there's the calling, then we respond to the call of God.
Abuna, so some people, they have a vision that they want to be a priest since they're really young, and that's how they see themselves. Sometimes it happens overnight. In your case, is this something that you thought about all throughout your life, or something that just happened overnight, kind of?
Well, I mean, the live a life for God, like I said, comes very young. How the shape that it takes, which, I mean, I don't think I didn't anticipate to be celibate priest. This was relatively limited. It's new. It's something old in the church, but even here is relatively new. So I didn't anticipate that. That's something that came more sudden. And my idea was more the monastic one. So, and for most of the married priests, when I can talk more, that's also very sudden. I mean, you'll be serving. There's a lot of people that give hints or suggestions, or sometimes even they can take, like they will enroll certain number of people to enlist to get acclamation or voting, for example, to approval. And so there's different, you can say, hits that one person will take on the road to the cross. So it takes a little more different, let's say, journey for each person.
Celibate priest. That's something new. We didn't hear about that before. What is the difference between, in detail, celibate priest and monkhood?
So in the first centuries, there was the apostles, as we knew, that were selected by the Lord. Some of them were married and some of them were not married. Like St. John, the Beloved, he was not married, but his brother, St. James, was, at least as from what we know. St. Peter was married. And there was, at that time, mainly the apostles. Then they selected the deacons to assist them. And we can assume that the deacons also, some of them were married, probably the majority were married, and that there could be some of those that were not. Like our St. Stephen, the archdeacon, was not married. And then when it came to the priests, the same selection. So there were some that were married and some that were not married. In the Council of Nicaea, we have one of the monks from Egypt who rose and said, because they had this discussion whether or not the priest should be married, the priest should not be married. And the West had the preference that all the priests should not be married. But the Egyptian opinion was no, let the priests marry, because they serve in the people and in the congregations. And this is the wisdom of the church. And in our days, we see the most practical and best suitable for the parish priest. So even when we serve in the parishes, the celibate priest, it's usually limited in terms of compassion, in terms of marriage issues and problems that we get involved in. And in our life, we also have a different way of life than the regular priest, because the regular priest has a lot of responsibilities with his family and other obligations, and we use that time and that energy also for the community that we live in, and the life of celibacy, which is what we call like a semi-monastic life. Like we have some things taken from the monastic life and suitable for us. Like a monk, when he enters the monastery, he lives a certain way of life and he's fixed for that. So the way he prays, the time he sleeps, the way he eats, how he deals with the rest of the monks, all of this, it needs a strict...
The last question is, what kind of tests are you put through for you to be able to be ordained as a celibate priest? Is there a specific test that you have to go through as a priest?
I mean, there's not like a GRE,
Yeah.
but I think, so what happens is, like in the monastic life, there's a testing for the call. So say I want to be a monk, there's a few years of a period where you get a lot of assignments and a lot of services, and then to see, is this life going to work? Is it more for monastic life and not celibate service? Or is it something else? And so that 2-3 year period is very important. And so for me, it was 2 years, a little more than 2 years before the ordination. And that's where things are confirmed for, like, yes, this is my way and this is my place, and also for the servants. So there's a lot of people who came to, and within short time, sometimes a few days, sometimes a little longer, there's mutual understanding this is not going to work. Afterwards, though, if he's called to serve in a church or in a city or in a different country. So he has a modified life. He will adjust his life and his prayers and his sleep and his service in some way. Hopefully not too much, but there are some needs that he is now responsible for a larger community than his own salvation, in addition to his salvation. And so we take that adjusted life and the balance between the service and the way of life, the personal way of life, that's always, I guess, in tension, but that's what makes the celibate priest in some ways unique from the monk who's living in the monastery. But the monk who is serving in the parish for a certain period of time is very close to the celibate priest who is serving, and I would say there's much less difference for those two. Exactly how, it's hard to say for me even. Our callings, of course, are different because as a celibate priest, both the callings relate to the love of God and the love and passion for serving his people. And the calling even within the married priesthood is different. Both of us actually, our calling started with consecration. We both wanted to consecrate our lives for the service regardless of marriage and regardless of ordination. So we didn't plan, neither of us planned to be priests. We just planned to serve our whole life. After going through, Abuna went through law school, I went through engineering, but we both ended up in consecration. And because Abuna didn't need to get married in the time of that kind of, so he was ordained first, and he started in the brotherhood while I still was consecrated, and then I got married, and eventually after that we got ordained. So that's kind of like how it progressed. But like I said in the beginning, everyone's called, not just within the priesthood, but as Christians, we're all called by God to serve. And everyone has a different way that they go about serving God and serving his people, whether it's a doctor or an engineer or a stay-at-home mother. They're all called to God, by God, to serve in one way or another. Basically, we're the same from the beginning all the way up to college. I mean, almost all of our classes and all of our appointments, and even the friends, mostly pretty much the same. Like, rare for us to spend a day or 2 days away. I can't remember how often that happened. So usually, and they say with twins, they're very close, especially in the earliest years, and as if they only talk to each other and like rarely to other people. So they tend to be also a little more quiet, but very close. In terms of, I can take it after that. So once college hit, we had different fields of study. So with that came different schedules and some different activities as well. But we still remain, thank God, fairly close. So that's where the personality also, we have different personalities, different likes and dislikes, but at the same time, thank God, we're still brothers. Just like all the other siblings, they don't all go into the same field or the same job. So I studied, I got a bachelor's degree in civil engineering, and then I followed with a master's degree in structural engineering. And then I worked for a few years, 2 or 3 years, and right before I was going to get the engineering license, I consecrated my life after graduate school to serve in the church. And during that time, I got another degree in counseling, in marriage and family therapy, and then I got ordained. Abuna John has a lot different story. Do you want me to say it? No, it's the same. I think we were in college at the same time, and
Same college.
yes, at UCLA for 4 years, and then afterwards I went to law school, and that's when I think shortly after Abuna started working and then masters, and I was in Washington D.C. for 3 years, and then after law school worked for 1 year and then consecrated. So Abuna had already been consecrated, I think, for 2 years or
I was consecrated in 99.
99. Sure. So by the time I came back, which was in the late summer of 99, then I worked for another year and then consecrated after, so in 2000.
What was your parents' reaction to both of you wanting to become priests? I mean, I know that if one member of the family, one son, wants to be a priest, it's a big deal. But to have two twins wanting to become a priest, and one of them a celibate priest, that must have been like an amazing interaction.
I think the surprise, though, the shock, because for most people the shock will come, in the announcement and we're going to ordain so-and-so. But I think because of the consecration, that's where the shock came. And so Buddha in 99, he said, I'm going to leave work and then serve. And at that time, there wasn't really many people who were consecrated here. I think it was one or two, Abunamina.
It wasn't a very well-known thing to do.
Yeah, and not really certain like how long are you going to be consecrated, where are you going to be serving. So all those questions, I think that came early. And then there was this, when the time for ordination came, it wasn't a surprise or shock. It was
7 years.
It was
later.
a natural, natural kind of progression. But if you talk to other priests, I think it would be much more shock and surprise and arguments and other things that happen. But it wasn't.
Are you both the only siblings in the family?
That's it. They gave up.
Being twins, and then one when you were a priest. Any funny story that you can think about when you were growing up?
Or something. We're not
Anything
that funny.
suitable for TV?
We'll have to take it another time. I don't know.
Anything with your parents or friends confusing you or
It
something?
happens every day, yeah. That's
Was there any specific story like what happened to me today? And I what about like Abuna's? I understand. Do you both take confessions?
I mean, I don't take that many. It's very limited, very limited, depending on where I'm serving. So usually Abuna. Some people will come up and ask for because they think I'm Abuna David. Is when I'm praying at St. Mary's all the time.
So what happens if somebody's confessing to you but is the wrong person? What do they? Has that ever happened?
Yeah, many times. I mean, they'll come, like they'll be confessing for me for many times, or sitting with me for baptism, like a new convert, and then they'll find Abuna John in the church, and he won't greet them as warmly, and they will be at first upset and shocked and confused, and then after we explain to them, then they're surprised and happy. Or other times, people who only know one of us, and then they come to the church and we'll be praying just haphazardly, in the same church, and they'll look to the side and see another one, and one lady said she almost had a heart attack because of so those are just some small things.
Okay, the last question is, what kind of tests are you put through for you to be able to be ordained as a celibate priest? Is there a specific test that you have to go through as a priest?
I mean, there's not like a GRE, but I think so. What happens is, like in the monastic life, there's a testing for the call. So, say I want to be a monk. There's a few years of a period where you get a lot of assignments and a lot of services, and then to see, is this life going to work? Is it more for monastic life and not celibate service, or is it something else? And so that 2-3 year period is very important. And so for me, it was 2 years, a little more than 2 years before the ordination, and that's where things are confirmed for, like, yes, this is my way and this is my place, and also for the servants. So there's a lot of people who came to, and within short time, sometimes a few days, sometimes a little longer, there's mutual understanding this is not going to work.
Was a stranger and you took me in, naked and you clothed me, sick and you visited me, in prison and you came to me. Now come to me, blessed of my Father. Of my brothers, you've done it unto me. Whenever you've done it to the least of my